Today we're going to start our conversation with the Vanguard newspaper. But before we start to dissect the reports that have been put in the front pages of the papers, we would of course introduce Fuhad Saheed, who will be helping us with analysis. Good morning to you, Fuhad.
Good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. All right,
Thank you.
so let's start today with the Vanguard newspaper. The top story here: subsidy removal will set Nigeria on fire. NLC warns government, says incoming government should focus on local refining, not subsidy. And this is me reading to you the writers to that story. Insists Labour won't accept fuel hike in the name of subsidy. Deregulation, not subsidy removal, better for Nigeria. Oil marketers. Domestic refining of fuel critical, says CPPE. So let's look at the body of the story. The Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has warned that those pushing for subsidy removal in Nigeria are set to put the country on fire. The warning comes against the backdrop of an announcement that the outgoing government of President Buhari had left the decision of petrol subsidy removal to the incoming government. According to the NLC, the focus should be on local refining of petroleum products and not subsidy removal. So let's take this one paragraph at a time. The NLC is somewhat, should I say, consolidating, or should I reiterating the position of many analysts on the matter, who think that the fuel subsidy removal is something that definitely should happen if economic progress is what we're aiming for. But then again, they have started to complain about the processes leading to the removal of fuel subsidy, and they're quite certain that if we do not work on local refining before we remove subsidy, the consequences would be deleterious. So Fuad, address that before we continue to talk about the other aspects of the story.
Well, Sage, again, for sake of sounding like a broken record, we kept talking about this issue. I think it was one of the topics we analyzed last week, or it was on Monday, this issue of fuel subsidy. Again, these were issues I thought that would have been able to sort out before the last election. When we kept talking about constructive engagement, talking about critical issues and focusing on issues that really concern Nigerians. I was thinking that, we would have been able to sort these issues out with the presidential candidate, especially the frontline presidential candidate. Especially when Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu is now the president-elect. In all of the campaign ground said, look, no matter the protest, he's going to remove subsidy. In another breath, he also said, people should not worry, I'm going to bring it down. Again, these are general statements that lacks the how factor. And when I say how factor, how exactly are you going to be? How are you exactly going to do it? We couldn't ask these questions. We didn't focus on these things. These were important issues for me. And as an analyst already, I kept repeating that, look, we are losing track of the major issues. We were concentrating on non-issues. Then we were concentrating on religious issues, the Muslim care, this and that, and all of the, which for me, were not so relevant. Where we are now, we have a president-elect, people are in court. We are now talking about those issues. When we should have sorted it out with them and hold them to whatever they said or what we want. When people are seeking for your vote, say it's easy for you, or it's easier for you to set an agenda for them and hold them to what they are talking about. But now that they are in power, they have their own mind. And the reason why Labour is actually making this statement now is that, look, number one, subsidy is not captured in the budget beyond June this year. Unless we get a supplementary budget, I don't think we'll continue to pay subsidy because it's not captured. And the government seems determined. If they follow what Ashwaji has said, even in his campaign grounds, when he was even seeking people's vote, then look, well, you should like protest from now till tomorrow. I'm going to remove subsidy. But the reality of subsidy is in stage. And I think the Labour is quite clear on what they are saying. Nobody is saying they should not remove subsidy, even though I always argue that subsidy is not a bad thing. All over the world, government subsidize different things for their people, public transportation, the cost of sometimes even food products, agriculture, manufacturing sector, and all of that, just to ease the burden and pain on the people. But here we are, like every other thing, something that has worked in other times has become a problem in Nigeria, and that's the reason why we are saying something should be removed. But the reality is that, look, if we continue to import and we are not able to refine locally and we remove subsidy, in simple English, no need for big grammar. Nigerians are going to suffer. Not small suffering, real one. That some in best level, real suffering. Because the reality is that our life depends almost 90% on petroleum products.
Fuhad.
People will tell you that, they remove subsidy on kerosene, they remove subsidy on diesel. Those ones are products that really don't affect all Nigerians. For petrol, imagine petrol goes at 750 naira per litre, has already been projected. How would Nigerians cope?
Fuad, the NLC has a position on this actually. As far as they're concerned, the whole subsidy thing is just a charade, because they keep referencing 2016 when Nigerians were told that subsidy has been removed, and that is why we were comfortable with the increment that followed that statement, that you have removed it. We're comfortable with the increment of the price of petrol at this time. So the fact that we're now being told year after year or electoral cycle after electoral cycle that they are going to remove fuel subsidy is actually a sham. And NLC is saying that anybody that is insisting on removing fuel subsidy right now is trying to blow up the country. That was their exact words. They're trying to blow up the country. That's why there is no subsidy to be removed as far as they are concerned, because it had been removed in 2016. There was a deliberate attempt to continue to increase the price of petrol. That is what the NLC thinks.
Sage, this is one of the biggest failure of the Buhari government, of the APC-led government, and a very disappointing failure, a very big failure on their part. Yes, in 2015, despite protests and all of that, the pump price of fuel was raised on the guys that subsidy was going to be removed. I think they moved from 85 to about 100 something naira, I think 125 or something. The reality is this: as long as we continue to import refined fuel, which will be determined by forex, so as the naira continues to perform poorly against the dollar, naturally the pump price of fuel will continue to rise. And that's why we are calling for refining locally. It is simple economics. It's not rocket science. It's just, look, we've given several examples of countries who are all producing nations, who have functional refineries in their country. They have what they call stability in local oil pricing. Stability, because it's not determined by forex or importation. And that's why we are saying that, look, how do we explain that as the largest oil producing country in sub-Saharan Africa, we cannot even have one functional refinery? One, not even one. We built 4, we ran it aground. And from 1999 till date, we have not been able to fix one. And for people who think that, look, our inability to fix our refinery shows a conspiracy against the Nigerian people. You can't fault that argument. That, look, it is deliberate. There are people who are stuck on this thing, who are milking the country, and that conspiracy is enabled by government in their inability to fix our refinery. Say, a private man, just one human being, out of 200 million Nigerians, in 6 years, has been able to build the largest refinery in the whole of West Africa. Just one person. How do you explain a situation where we couldn't fix our own refinery? For the NNPC and Nigeria went into a private refinery and invested about $2.something billion just to buy a 20% stake from that refinery. Let's even ask ourselves questions. The refinery that Dangote built, that was able to source dollars. Who didn't get the dollars at official rate from Nigeria and the CBN? So how do you give all of that support to a private entity, to a private individual to own a refinery, and you couldn't even fix your own refinery? And that's why that was the biggest disappointment from the APC government, who came with a mantra of change in 2015. Here we are now, 8 years down the line, we are on the same story and we're even worse off. And then for anybody that is asking, again, I think the Asiwaju-led government needs to begin to understand that Nigerians may resist and attempt to increase the pump price of fuel if they don't fix our refineries. Say it is in simple English. Nigerians are going to suffer. They will not be able to bear it if we don't fix our refineries before subsidy is removed. And again, there's a fraudulent regime. Up till now, how do you explain that we cannot say for a fact the liter of fuel we consume in Nigeria on a daily basis? You have the NNPC giving about 60-something million liters per day. You have the cost of disputing it. At some point, it was about 93 million in the same country, and we are not ashamed. You have the president and minister of petroleum. Nobody is accountable to anything. You can't even solve simple issues as a nation. Say, I agree with people who think that, look, what is happening in the oil sector is a conspiracy against the Nigerian people. And it's only God that can save us.
Right. Well, some are saying that the deregulation of the sector might be the best thing for us. That is the only way that we would be able to manage this particular situation. And I think that's what the oil marketers are saying. Deregulation is what we need, not subsidy removal, because they actually believe that there is no subsidy whatsoever to be removed. Once it's deregulated, and like you advised yesterday, Fuhad, give licenses to people who can import fuel into the country. Maybe allow states to import for their state consumption. At least this would help to manage the issue of scarcity.
That's a short-term solution, honestly, because the long-term solution and the most reasonable solution is for us to begin to refine locally. We must also have a situation where government is an active player. Again, I talked about the fact that we can privatize our refineries and government owns it that takes care of our local needs as Nigerians, and it to protect the interest of the town body. So that takes care of the needs of the poor and vulnerable in the country. While, we are able to run it properly, using private structure and all of that. But for them to think they're just going to remove subsidy, and that excuse, that argument of whatever money is paid from subsidy removal and to be channeled into other things. In a country where there's a lot of trust deficit, in a country there's so much corruption, where it's easy for this money to be saved and still be filtered away into hands of private people who are going to sit on it. And you think Nigerians are going to trust that whatever money is saved on subsidy removal will be channeled into other things. Which other things? And that's why I say there's no palliative that can bring down the suffering of Nigerians. That's why we're saying that, look, they should fix our refineries before you move subsidy. Yes, it should go, but it should solve the problem of refining locally. Or else, Nigerians will see serious suffering. This is not sounding alarming, so it's not the reality.
Well, you can get more information on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Let's look at another headline here. Tinubu presidency, Sanusi may return as CBN governor. So, Fuad, the headline here is telling us that Sanusi may return as the CBN governor when the president-elect becomes the president. Let's look at this. A powerful lobby is currently pushing for the return of Sanusi Lamido Sanusi as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria as the shape of Tinubu's presidency begins to emerge. Sanusi, whose forte is risk management in banking, enjoys the blessing of Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State, who has the ears of the president-elect Bola Tinubu. So, Fuad, let's talk about the CBN governor as the CBN when he was the CBN governor. A lot of people criticize his tenure very heavily, and there was the whole scandal. I think the oil scandal, the 20 billion oil scandal that he, quote and unquote, revealed at the time, his suspension and all of that. People have referenced that his tenure is not exactly as something that we can reference in a good way, but there are others who would argue that he's quite good in managing financial issues. He knows about the right policy that would address the right situation. And now that we are hearing that there is a possibility, these are whispers, we haven't heard any official body talk about this, or even the president elect himself. But then again, do you think that Sanusi Lamido returning, because I remember when he initially was suspended and he left as the CBN governor, he did say that he had no interest in coming back again. But do you think that a man like Sanusi Lamido, judging by his antecedents, might be the right person to solve the financial crisis that we're currently experiencing in the country? And what do you think about this whispers of him coming back as the CBN governor after Emefiele's tenure expires?
Well, this is a speculative story.
Yes.
It's just speculative, me. And again, I'm always careful to review, to ventilate a planted story. I have this doctrine of utility a planted story, where stories are planted in the newspapers to push an agenda. The reality is there are a lot of Nigerians who have the capacity, the knowledge, and technical know-how to teach and work at the CBN effectively. They can't be Lamido Sanusi alone. There are a lot of Nigerians from different ethnic groups, from different parts of the country, who have the capacity, the knowledge to work as CBN governor and pass very well. I must tell you that whether we like it or not, the Emefiele has been a disaster, a complete disaster. And I'm sure Nigerians can't wait for him to leave that position for us to at least have somebody who will be able to fix that place. But it can't be Sanusi Lamido Sanusi alone. And if you look at that story, it's just speculated, because what they are saying is that, his closeness and relationship with El-Rufai, who seems to have the ears of the president-elect, may see him return to that position. Yes, I agree. But it's also not in the good books of Gandhi. the current governor of Kano State, who also has the ears of Ashwad Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You know, was manager that removed him as emir of Kano. So again, I say this story is speculative. Yes, again, the record of Sanusi as the CBN governor, a lot of people will tell you that, look, it depends on where you are looking at it from. There were issues of there were a lot of scandals. He also had this of,
Fuad. Fuad, we might need to call you back. We're unable to hear you. There's a connection problem. Let's try to get Fuad back on the line. You're still listening to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're currently reviewing the Vanguard newspaper. We're having conversations about the position of oil marketers, the CPPE, and the idea that removal of fuel subsidy without, first of all, establishing local refining, or at least increasing our capacity to refine locally, might bring a lot of economic dangers, especially to small, medium enterprises, business owners, and the Nigerian people generally. And now we're talking about this report in the papers about Sanusi Lamido may being the operative word here, return as the CBN governor. Speculative headline, but then again, we're analyzing it briefly. Fuad, do we have you back now?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, please go on ahead.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying about this Sanusi story is that, look, it's just speculative. It's not this, and I'm always very careful to review stories that I consider planted stories to set agenda. Because again, if you look at the entire story, it's just pure speculation. But again, what I'm saying is that, look, there are thousands of Nigerians out there who have the knowledge, who have the capacity to lead the CBN and perform very well. You understand? It can't be Sanusi Lamido Sanusi alone. He doesn't have to travel. He doesn't even have to return to that place. There are lots of Nigerians who have what it takes to run the CBN and run it very well. Again, we may well all agree that the Emefiele era has been a disaster. It's a complete disaster. And we can't wait to have somebody else to pilot the ship of the CBN. But again, if you look at the story, the idea that, look, he may return because Sanusi Lamido Sanusi may return because he goes to El-Rufai, who has the ears of the president. For me, it's not too much of anything to really worry about. Because again, the same Sanusi is not in the good books of Gandhi, the current governor of Kano State, who is also an ally of the president-elect. And so if you look at it in that way, you understand that this is just mere speculation, and sometimes it's easy for us to detect stories that are put in the paper to set an agenda. I'm not saying he's not a good person. He has his own issues to as CBN governor. He was not all uhuru when he was the CBN governor. There were a lot of baggages too that he had too. Yeah. In fact, you can't forget how he was removed and the conditions and reasons why he was removed. It can be a bit disruptive to his nature. You know, if you really follow him, he has this destructive nature to it. Yes, very vocal, but sometimes it can be a bit, overboard when he makes comments and those things. Right. But the reality is that, look, it doesn't have to be Sanusi Lamido Sanusi. There are a lot of people, a lot of Nigerians from different ethnic groups, from different parts of the country, who are fit to become CBN governor and perform very well.
Well, thank you very much, Fuad. If you would like to read for yourself, go check page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, Mainland 98.3 FM. Go on there. You can watch us live, and you can, of course, drop your contributions. And please refrain from calling the phone lines. I believe that by now we should understand, well, for those who probably this is your first time tuning in, from now till 8:30, we review the papers. We do not take contributions just yet. We review the papers, provide you with the information, and then we come back at 8:40. We'll give out the phone lines, and then you can call and tell us what you feel about the stories. Please and please do not call the phone lines at this time. Thank you for your understanding. So let's move on now. Still on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, treason and campaign of calumny, Obi tells the federal government. Says allegation of federal government, APC spokesman damaging Nigeria. Federal government wants Obi Dati against inciting violence. Says their action tantamount to treason. This is a very interesting story, and in fact it is the major story in about 2-3 other newspapers. So we have here Labour Party presidential candidate Mr. Peter Obi has urged the federal government and spokesman of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC to stop the campaign of calumny against him noting that the campaigns were damaging the image of Nigeria on global stage. Now, this response is actually as a result of the statement that was made by the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who gave the admonition in Washington, D.C. during his official engagement with some international media organization on the just concluded 2023 polls. This is according to the news agency of Nigeria. So, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, is in Washington, D.C., and he did have a lot to say about the Labour Party presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate. He says that if they are dissatisfied with the outcome of the election, they have already started, court proceedings challenging the process that led to the emergence of the now president-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the court have granted them permission to do pretty much everything they need to build their case, gather evidence. So he's now saying that since you are in court, since you are using the law to challenge the process, what is the need for you to say certain things? And I think that this is majorly referencing what the vice presidential candidate Dati Baba Ahmed said in a recent interview, where he says that the CJN, Ariyowola, should make sure that he does not inaugurate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu because it is against democracy. It's ruining democracy, and a lot of people find this inciting, especially the Minister of Information and Culture, and he has described this singular act as an act of treason. Fuhad, do you think that the Minister of Information and Culture might be exaggerating a little bit, or do you believe that the statement by Dati Ahmed Baba that inaugurating Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is tantamount to treason?
Well, I think the Minister of Information should also understand that, when there's a burning fire, you don't put petrol in it. This is the time for us to look at ways of, dousing the tension and reducing, the detention in the land. And of course, I understand where it's coming from. Yes, as you can from what he's saying, but again, I think that they have been a bit more discreet about his choice of words. Although he may just want to describe it the way it is. But I think that, sometimes you look at the mood of the nation, you look at the situation of things, and then, of course, try to be a bit diplomatic with your choice of words. So, but on that, I think that would be my take on the fact that, look, I think we have to tell people like Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who also had strong words against the former government of Goodluck Jonathan when they were in the opposition, to please just, tone it down a bit. Because of the situation of the country at this time. But what I say that, I also have to say that Dati Baba meant that his Channel TV interview was completely responsible. Anybody can argue, can say whatever he wants to say. But one would think that at the level of Dati Baba Ahmed, who owns a university, who is also a thoroughbred politician, because I think he has been in the Senate before he was removed, he was in the House of Reps, he knows the rules of the game. He knows how this thing goes. He knows what he's supposed to do. They are already in court. For him to have made that statement, that if anybody is sworn in, because he feels that, look, the election was not properly done and all of that, was an empty democracy, I say again, it's a complete irresponsible statement that we should all condemn. And I said it yesterday, that, look, people like that, maybe he was not involved in the struggle for democracy. He doesn't know the value. Some of us, as young as I am, we knew what we did. As young people, we knew what we faced as student leaders at that time to ensure that democracy returns to Nigeria in 1999. Some of us chopped Koboko while protesting in the streets of Lagos to ensure that democracy returns to Nigeria. So we know the value of democracy. We know the pains of military government. So if you not stop because you have lost an election, I feel in court. I keep saying it, and I keep repeating it, that the election cycle is not over. It's not over. And it's not, this is just simple logic. The courts are going to decide. I know I also mentioned something recently, that all of the former presidential candidates have once in the past been a beneficiary of court rulings. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he was brought before the CCB, won in the court. Peter Obi has been reinstated as governor twice in Anambra State by the court. He was removed, the court brought him back as governor, which he has also benefited from ruling of the court. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has benefited from the court when Obasanjo was trying to remove him as vice president. He went to the court and the court kept keeping him there, which means he has benefited from the ruling of the court. The same thing Kwankwaso and the rest. So they have all benefited. So I don't know why anybody would not want to touch the judiciary. The reality is that we have no choice. We have to resource this side. And like if anybody cares to listen, there is no perfect democracy anywhere in the world. Say, I shared an interview with you this morning.
Yes.
And I'm sure you listened to that audio.
Yes, I did.
From the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, when he was interviewed and questioned on the conduct of the 2007 election, which he conducted as president that brought in Yaradua, the same election that everybody at that time condemned, that international observers condemned, that even Yaradua, who benefited from that election as president, condemned. This, you heard what he said about the fact that there can't be any perfect election, and that we should be careful to throw the baby with the bathwater. So what I'm saying is that look, we have our issues to deepen democracy. Hello?
What, we're with you.
Okay, so to deepen democracy, we must continue to talk about these things. Let us allow the court processes to go on, and then we'll see what comes out of it. And afterwards, we continue the debate, the conversation about how to get our electoral process better. But we can't burn down the country because people have lost elections. People will always win and lose. That's the reality of elections. So I'm saying again that people like Alaji Mohammed and the government will keep pulling it down because, of course, the extension in the land. But again, when people make reckless statements like that of Dati Baba, we must also condemn it. If anybody makes that kind of statement again, we condemn it and shut it down. It's important because, again, as I said, some of us suffered to see the return of democracy. And we value to understand why it is important for us to have democracy and continue to have peaceful transition.
Well, thank you very much, Fuhad. Peter Obi, of course, has denied and said that he has never in any way preached against insurrection or incited the public.
Honestly, to be fair to Peter Obi, has never issued any statement or made any. But it is that Baba made. He should talk to his running mate.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Fuhad, for that. You can check page 25 of Vanguard newspaper if you want more detail on that particular story. Now, let's move on. We do have another headline here. We have no power to track or leak telephone conversations. And this is still, of course, in relation to the audio that was leaked over the weekend, a conversation between the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi and the presiding bishop of the Winners Chapel, David Oyedepo. So, whilst the media team of the Labour Party was trying to defend that particular audio, Kenneth Okonkwo had so much to say. Initially, the audio was termed a deep fake. It was doctored. That's what they said. But from what Kenneth Okonkwo, who is also a spokesperson for the party, said, that everything that was said was taken out of context. And moving forward, we also had other members of the media team that said that the NCC might be responsible for that leak. Well, the NCC, in their defense, have said, that's the Nigeria Communications Commission, has denied the allegation that it was involved in tracking and leaking of telephone conversation. Fuad, if you remember when we spoke about this in passing, the accusation was that for 3 years now, the NCC might have been involved in bugging Peter Obi's phones. His conversations have been tracked over time, and this is because they were trying to gather dirt on Peter Obi that will be used against him. The NCC they're trying to exonerate themselves from that allegation, and they're saying that it would be a breach of the Communication Act of 2003 if they are involved in something like that, and they wish to declare that they have absolutely nothing to do with the leakage and they did not in any way bug Peter Obi's phone. First, what do you think of this accusation from the Labour Party camp, and also the position of the NCC about bugging his phone and deliberately leaking the conversation?
Now, when it comes to politics, a lot of things happen. And again, my own understanding of how politics is that, so many things goes into it. There's the propaganda aspect of it, there's the public relations aspect of it, there's the guerrilla warfare aspect of it, there's the proper politics in the campaigns and all of that. There's also the spy aspect of it, espionage aspect of it that goes on, where people are planted into your party to begin to spy on you. In fact, people are planted into your inner circle to begin to eavesdrop on you. So I'm saying that again, look, the NCC has denied, any involvement in the leakage or whether tapping phones and all of that. Well, we would have to take their word for it. They said no, they were never involved. But when it comes to leakages like this, I think the Labour Party presidential candidate knows too well that he needs to look at his inner circle. That's the reality thing. He needs to look at his inner circle because a lot of times you have situations where politicians plant people into the inner circle of the opposition to do all of these things. I remember when my grandfather was sharing the story of Awolowo we knew when he was talking about the caucus in a political party, that you have different level of caucus. So what you discuss in the open within the bigger caucus, you have to go and discuss again in the inner caucus. Then you have to go and discuss again with another inner caucus. So so the reality is that politics comes with all of these things, where people is dropped, where people fight, where you have leakages, and then people are planted and all of that. As a journalist, for example, I think I should be more interested in the content of that material, not the source. If you understand what I'm saying. Because I've seen a lot of journalists try to begin to question the source, how the thing emanated and all of that. But leakages of this nature, they say, happens all over the world. And that is what journalists are happy to have. If you understand the rudiments of investigative journalism, that is what is required. Being able to go into these kinds of things and bring it out to make a story out of it. I'm not saying that there are no criminal intents towards bugging and tapping into people's records and phone conversations. What I'm saying is that look, when these things happen, as you are looking outwards, you also look inwards and check where it could have happened. We are not talking about the content of that material now, we are talking about the source. But the reality is that it could have been sourced from anywhere. It could have been sourced from the inner circle of Peter and the Labour Party or from an outside source. But the reality is that look, these things happen in politics, and what can you then do about it? It's the public already.
Right.
What then can you do about it?
Well, let's move faster. Page 4 of the Vanguard newspaper is where you find this story. On page 7, it's on the front page as well, but details are on front page 7. Bandits insist on payment of 100 million naira ransom to free 56 adoptees. We have here kill monarch, others in Benue communities. Well, we can see this particular story. I think we spoke about this, the rise in insecurity even before the elections. Yes, and then the bandits. Well, they have started again, Fuhad. They kidnapped about 60 persons in Paikoro local government area of Niger State a few weeks ago, and they have insisted on collecting 100 million naira ransom to release the 56 villagers in captivity. Also, failure to meet the payment deadline, the bandit last week executed 5 of the abductees to show their seriousness and insistence on their demand, and gave only 1 week for the day of execution to pay the ransom, or the 56 villagers in captivity will be killed. Fuhad, they are serious. The fact that they have been stalling the ransom payment, the federal government, the government have been stalling the ransom payment in Niger State. They have decided they publicly executed 5, and they're saying that the execution will continue until they pay the ransom. Fuhad, despite all of the fact that the security took the lion's share of the budget, many efforts are being made. We're still seeing abductions of this magnitude and executions because the government is reluctant in paying the ransom. How would you analyze the situation?
You say that. I think we need to rethink our security arrangements in the country. And as fast as possible, I think we need to quickly resolve the issue of state policing. To really localize our policing in this country. This current arrangement is not working safe. That's just a fact. And the reality is that no matter the amount we budget into this structure of security, to not work because it's over centralized. If we all agree that policing is local and that local intelligence is important to proper policing of our local areas and dealing with issues like banditry and kidnapping and all these kind of things, then we need to quickly restructure our security arrangements to create room for state police, even if it's possible to have local local government police, forest rangers and all of these kinds of things. Because the reality is that what we have now is not working. The bandits have started again. I think in the news too, there were reports of students kidnapped in Kaduna State.
Yes, 10 of them, I believe.
Now Niger State, Benue, the killings have started and all of that. And in Zamfara too, we've gotten reports of bandits doing normal housing there. Yeah. So the reality is that we need to quickly fix our security issues. Again, one of the major failures of the APC government, I have to say. It was Boko Haram during the Jonathan era of the PDP, and it was more of the north. Now we have widespread insecurity across the country. We have insecurity in the southeast. We have insecurity in the north central. We have it in the northwest. We have it in the southwest. So it's widespread, and I must say again and emphasize that look, this is another major failure the APC government that the incoming government needs to begin to think about how to fix it. And it will require a lot. Again, we may have to invest more in intelligence gathering. And then beyond all of that,
procurement of ammunition,
hardware, and we need those things. We need weapons, but again, it has to be about intelligence gathering, and then the willingness to do the right thing, the willingness to go after these guys, arrest them, and make them face justice. You know, it's important that we see people being prosecuted, and if possible, getting the maximum sentence for these crimes they are committing.
Right.
But I think that we need to quickly fix our security issues. Whether the government will be able to do it in these few days, I don't think so. I think we just have to hope and wait. But we still have to beg them to do what is needful to release these guys before they are killed.
Well, thank you very much, Fuhad. So let's look at this last story here. Well, the stories are pretty much the same across all the other papers, so I can assure you that we are covering pretty much everything that the other papers are reporting. Treasury looters using foreign currency exchange to launder funds, Giaba warns. Now, the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, Giaba, yesterday urged the federal government to focus attention on foreign currency exchange operations in the country, describing it as a new haven for treasury looters and terrorism financiers. Because of our time, I think that we can already pick what is being said here. Fuad, I remember that Godwin Emefiele did announce the discontinuance of I think foreign currency sale to Bureau de Change, the BDC operators, because they believe that it has become a conduit pipe for illegal financial flows. Corrupt people are using it to launder money and what have you. Well, this group is now reiterating that this foreign exchange operations in the country has become one of the most effective way by those who, especially terrorism financiers, to move currency or money in and out of the country. Do you think that there's one precise way, one precise technique that we can use to nip terrorism financing in the bud, money laundering, financial crimes generally? And do you think that preventing Bureau de Change, suspending them, refusing to sell forex to them might be the best way to go?
Yeah, again, it's still about fixing the CBN and fixing our forex, situation. Again, having these two markets, the official and the two markets should stop. I think we should just have a single forex market. And I also think that, this idea of making foreign exchange available at official rate is something we need to look at. It's still about corruption, really. There's nothing wrong, for example, in supporting the manufacturing sector with forex at official rate. Or even the health sector and some critical sectors of the country. But I also think that we need to look at the way these things are done. In terms of money laundering and all of that, it's our own problem really. To look at, to block those leakages, how these things are done. People even use religion, religious houses to move money.
Yeah, and NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
Yeah, there's NGOs and all of that. So those are things we know, but to require the government, the EFCC, the ICPC, to create a structure to begin to track these funds and ensure that they don't move out of the country. But the reality is that we still need to do a lot of work as far as anti-graft issues are concerned.
Of course, and I think that we also need to look at the harmonization, because why do we have two market? Why do we have the official and the parallel? Why do we have official and parallel markets? Can't we harmonize it and just have one?
We just need to harmonize it and just have one.
Right.
So it's all the problem.
All right, that's it for the Vanguard newspaper. Let's move on very briefly to Punch now. The top story here, Obidati risks treason charges. Federal government wants. I think we addressed this already, but let's still look at the riders. Labour Party presidential candidate, deputy, calling for insurrection. It's treasonable, says minister. Obi should face the law, says APC. Federal government allegation reckless, says
we need to beg the APC to be magnanimous in victory. They need to calm down. That's the reality, because even their own spokesperson too are making inciting statements.
They have said a lot of things. I do
remember
remember
one of them on radio and TV for sake of regulation. They are on social media also quoting all manner of reckless statements.
Yes, I mean,
Bayo Ononuga has not been doing well with his phone. He's our guy. He's a respected journalist. He knows the drill. He has been posting inciting statements. In fact, a lot of his Twitter posts have ethnic coloration, inciting one ethnic group against the other.
Fuad, why are you going too far? We're going too far. How about the youth leader, Dayo Israel? he has not been
Yeah.
saying, he has been saying a lot of things that are both, it can be termed as, it has ethnic sentiment, religious sentiment,
Sentiment, a lot of that too.
Yoruba and all of that. So, and I don't
No,
see anything being done.
and then Fadika Adetu has very colorful words. When I say colorful, in the
Yeah, I
negative,
understand.
to also describe a lot of things and all of that. So, and so what is, I think we need to talk to all of them. That's why I keep saying the politicians, irrespective of the party. I think Alhaji Lai Mohammed needs to talk about the APC too, because they also have people pushing out information that are inciting and reckless too.
Right. Well, federal government allegation reckless, says Obi PDP. Reps condemn calls for interim government, asks DSS to arrest enemies of democracy. So we've spoken about this. Let's talk about this particular headline here that we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Sanusi has something to say. He says that Nigeria more divided than civil war. That is his opinion on the state that we are in right now, especially post-election. I'm going to take the first paragraph of the story because of our time. The former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mohammed Sanusi, has said Nigeria has been this divided since the Civil War, has never been this divided since the Civil War of 1967 to 1970. He says the country, because of the election, was now dangerously divided along ethnic and religious lines, adding that it had put the integrity of public institutions in question, especially the police, the judiciary, and even the electoral umpire, that is INEC. Fuhad, would you agree with Sanusi that this election brought to the fore how we really feel about each other in the country, the ethnic divide, the religious divide, I don't want to say the underlying hate that a lot of people have for each other, and the fact that the integrity of the security architecture of the country, the judiciary, I mean, from the phone calls we've received, a lot of people saying we don't trust the Supreme Court, and even INEC in itself, that the trust deficit that the people have with INEC has continued to broaden since the election. Do you agree with Sanusi?
Honestly, this particular election has revealed a whole lot about Nigeria, and I agree with Sanusi on this completely. It has brought so many issues, whether we like it or not. The last election was majorly decided on ethnic and religious sentiment. It was clear, even from the results of the election. Just do the analysis. Ethnic religious sentiment was what dictated the voting pattern across the country. Unfortunately, it was a religious sentiment, and the politicians were so smart. They used it carefully. They were putting it in the faces of people. They visited religious houses. They talked to both Islamic and Christian clerics. They were everywhere, pushing the agenda. Then also ethnicity also came in. Who came from where, who is this, who is that, and all of that. And I always say this, whether anybody likes to listen or not, the reality is that when these politicians come together to do their thing, quote and unquote now, they don't talk about religion, neither do they talk about ethnicity. You see Christian politicians working with Muslim politicians and pagan politicians to steal the country dry. You see the Igbo politician working with the Yoruba politician and the Northern politician or Hausa or Ijaw politician to steal the country dry. At that point, when they do these things, they don't talk about the things they sold to Nigerians during the election. It's unfortunate. And why we fell for these things, we kept pointing out that, look, all of these things were doing, don't focus on these things. These politicians are deliberate about these things. But nobody listened. We were more interested in those things. Nigerians were more interested in those things. Unfortunately. And here we are now. And then look at what also happened during the election. Look at the security failure. The security lapses that we saw, especially at the governorship and state assembly elections. It also showed that, look, the security architecture of the country is not working. And we need to do something about it.
Right. Fuad, let's move to this story here. You can get more details on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. Cash circulation is low, NLC tells the Central Bank of Nigeria. Of course, you do know that the NLC did threaten to go on strike March 29. But then again, they considered and they said, let's give the CBN 2 weeks. They are making effort, especially when the CBN met with CBN governor, I beg your pardon, met with commercial banks, urging them to ensure circulation is intensified. The NLC are giving the their review that so far so good. The CBN might be trying, although they expected distribution to be at 100% capacity, but they cannot say that. The speed of circulation is still slow, and in fact they're going to have another meeting to determine if they are going to indeed go on ahead with the strike that was postponed by 2 weeks. What do you think about so far so good, the distribution of cash? Do you think that the CBN is making good of their promise to the NLC, or do you think the NLC might need to start reconsidering that strike action that they suspended?
Well, again, to be fair to the CBN, the situation of things have improved. At least in the last few days, I've sent people to the bank who have been able to get access to cash, and I think I've used the ATM at one or two points, and I've been able to get reasonable amounts of cash. I think 20,000 maximum. So I think the situation is getting better, but I think more needs to be done. And so we must allow the NLC to exhaust the 2 weeks ultimatum. Let's see what happens at the expiration of the 2 weeks ultimatum before we begin to make comments on this. But the reality is that things have improved. It could get better, and I think the CBN needs to push more cash out there. But the danger again, Sage, I think we analyzed it the other time, is that the banks, the commercial banks are now complaining that people are coming to mop up the cash and audit. They are not making deposits.
Well, yes, I'm with you. All right then. Well, let's
see what the problem. People are taking the money, but they are not making deposits.
Here's the thing: people have started hoarding again. The fact that cash is now circulating, people have started hoarding again, and they're hoarding the old notes. Fuhad, it's not even a new one. They're hoarding the old.
The new notes are not even in circulation.
That's what exactly. So maybe we are the problem. It's not necessarily.
No. The people are even asking. You go across the counter, you use the ATM. The new notes are not available. So people are asking: is it that the CBN is not printing the new notes again? But one would think that, look, there's an opportunity now for the CBN between now and December to phase out the old notes by bringing out more new notes. But we are not even getting the new notes anywhere. Just the old notes that is available in circulation.
Well, I think that we should probably follow that advice. Let's give the CBN 2 weeks. It's just been a few days, I think about 4 days. So let's see after 2 weeks what's going to happen. And to expect that it will be at circulation will be at 100% capacity might be a little bit we're overreaching. Yeah, we might be overreaching. So let's give it some time. So we'll look at this final story here on the front page of the Punch, because we have actually addressed all the other stories that are on here whilst we're looking at the Vanguard newspaper. Foreign investors Sean Kano reverse Ogun 24 state. Foreign investors have decided they may decide to pull out their resources because all their investments in states like Kano, Rivers, Ogun, and 24 other Nigerian states did not exactly yield them a lot of return in investment. Although they continue to invest in Lagos State, they did not really get return on their investment, but they still continue to invest in Lagos State. But foreign investors has given, should I say, an appraisal of some sort, and in all the Nigerian states that they invested, they did not exactly get any profit. Fuhad, in the diversification of our economy, what the federal government has told us so far is foreign direct investments might be a technique that they would employ. We have foreign investors that are now talking about how well or how much profit they were able to make, and they don't have anything good to say. Do you think that we can still rely on this? Because I don't see any reasonable businessman who would want to put his money back into a business that did not yield any profit in the first place.
Say we are the largest economy in Africa. The prospects are there. We have everything. Good weather, good landscape. Resources are available for these people to tap in. So we also have a very good population.
Right.
It creates a market. But the reality is that there are things that support productivity that we need to work on. Basically, we need to fix our security issues. We need to fix the power problem. If you don't fix those two, yes, look, when you bring your investment here and then you have to pay through your nose to power your factory, what happens?
And you can't even repatriate your money. You cannot collect your money.
Look at the foreign airlines, and they can't even repatriate their funds. So we need to fix those issues. If you want to really make good impact, if you want to really encourage people to bring in more of their money from other countries.
Oh, well, Fuhad, we actually have to go. We are out of time. The Guardian newspaper, federal government Obi trade accusations on treason charge. Nigeria's capital inflow buckles under rising risks, monetary tightening. There are other stories here, but it will go for global view. And the Nation, wreck in governorship election bribe mess, how attempts to smuggle ballot paper was foiled. Government holds 10% hike in excise duty on non-alcoholic drinks. We'll talk about this probably. NERC goes tough on discos over meters. Federal government government. Obidati actions treasonable. BDC said aid treasury looting. Terrorism, says agency. So those are the headlines on the other papers. We will come back at 8:40 for Mainland Focus. We'll pick a few stories and have broad conversations about them. My name is Sage. Fuhad would also be with us whilst we come back for Mainland Focus. Don't go anywhere. This is the sound of Lagos.